The U.S. government shutdown has tied the record for the longest in history as bipartisan talks gain momentum, but no deal is in sight. A small group of lawmakers is working on a plan to reopen government, offering Democrats a standalone vote on extending Affordable Care Act subsidies in exchange for moving key agency funding bills. Democrats remain split since that vote is not guaranteed to pass. Senators Susan Collins and John Thune say progress is happening, but both caution the shutdown may continue. A new temporary funding bill is likely needed. The impact is growing nationwide with food banks overwhelmed, federal workers filing for unemployment, and travel delays worsening. Negotiations are expected to stretch beyond Election Day. The shutdown happened as Congress and the White House failed to agree on a budget or temporary funding plan. Let's discuss this further. We have on the show Irene Bueno of the Asian Americans Advancing Justice joining us via Zoom. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Hello, and good evening from Washington, D.C. Happy to be
Irene,
here.
before we talk about the government shutdown, I just wanted to ask first about the news we got yesterday. Vice President Dick Cheney dying at the age of 84. He was widely regarded as the most powerful vice president in U.S. history, and you having served in the White House before the Bush-Cheney years, particularly as a former official in the Clinton administration, being special assistant to the president in the White House Chief of Staff's office. How do you remember Vice President Cheney?
Yeah, I think as many Americans, we probably have some mixed feelings about him and views. I think I served in a Democratic administration under the Clinton administration when President Bush and Vice President Cheney took over. We obviously are Americans and support the president, but we did have some concerns about that administration and the direction they took. So I think during that time, we did have some mixed feelings about Vice President Cheney and knew how strong he was. But I think that what we saw is, he was really a man of integrity and really cared about this country and changed his views or softened, at least from my perspective. And I think he really showed that people of different views can still love America and may show it differently, but in the end, he cared about Americans. So, I give my deepest sympathies to his family, and I thank him for his service.
And he's often remembered for being very powerful behind the scenes. Can you help us understand what made him so influential inside government? And I guess another thing that was heavily polarizing about him were his foreign policy decisions. Specifically on the war on terror, he's described as the architect of that.
Yeah, I think that is what makes him controversial. But I think, as I said, I think in the end that people, understand that happened, but at the same time recognize that he was a great American and really cared about this country. I think he was very powerful because he understood Washington. And if you don't understand Washington, people can trip you up. But knowing Washington and also having relationships with leaders on Capitol Hill, I think made him very powerful.
And speaking of understanding Washington, help us understand this government shutdown. It is set to be the longest in U.S. history, going past the 35th day. What is causing the stalemate?
Well, I've been in Washington for a long time, so I've been through these shutdowns before, but this one does feel very different. I think because we knew it was going to happen just for so many reasons, and I think the main one happens to be that the Democrats were trying to stick up for American people, especially people who are not as well off or in poverty, and this was the only way we could get attention. But there's some specific things that Democrats are fighting for, and that is the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, help that is providing Americans to afford health care. And this is something that was put in place in 2021 and has been very popular. So the Democrats have tried to fight that this needs to be continued because people are seeing their premiums skyrocket without this help. So they're fighting for the American people, and this is the way they can get attention. So it's been, like you said, it's record-making day to day, and I think that people are really feeling the impact of this shutdown, and that there are some discussions going on a bipartisan basis in the Senate, not so much in the House. So I think that there are people who really care about both issues. But until they can kind of find a compromise that can get enough votes, and in the Senate, it's 60 votes, we will continue to see an impasse.
Is that the main thing that's up for debate, the Affordable Care Act, or are there other bills involved here?
Yeah. The other one is what passed in the summer, the extension of the Trump tax cuts that were made in this first term, that in order to pay for those major tax cuts that really go to the billionaires and people who make the most money in this country, they had to cut things like Medicaid, which, many Asian Americans are on Medicaid and also participate in the ACA marketplace. So it's really going to have an impact on our community. But that is another issue. But healthcare is really a big issue. So those are some of the main things, but the list is long, but those were the first couple of things that are timely that are causing this impasse.
How much of this is political? How much of this is a statement against the leadership of President Trump? Or is it just a matter of finding a comfortable compromise on the two bills that you mentioned? I mean, is it just ironing out the details here, or is this somehow, the Democrats trying to gain some leverage over the president?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything in DC is political, so this is partly political, and people, especially the Democratic leadership, do not feel like they have any leverage when the president and his staff just decide to eliminate USAID and cut employees and fire employees from the Department of Education, and just do things without any kind of consultation with Congress or any kind of abandon. They just seem to be doing things that are not normally happen in Washington, D.C. So that is part of it. But at the same time, there are true policy differences that the Democrats have with the Republicans around extending the health insurance tax subsidies and Medicaid cuts.
Of course, add to that the sweeping global tariffs debate that has been brought to the Supreme Court, right?
The list is long. The list is long.
Yes. Here in the Philippines, to be honest, this is a new idea for us. I mean, government shutdowns don't happen because when lawmakers don't agree on the budget, what is done is that the previous budget is applied to the year, the next year. So help us understand, how does a government shutdown look like? We do know it's only the non-essential services that stop. But are there things that we're not seeing here?
Yeah, so we sort of have that plan where we call it a continuing resolution, which means that the last budget that was passed by Congress just continues. But that does require a congressional approval. And like I said, in the Senate, it requires 60 votes, which is, more than a majority. So that is where there's difficulty in doing that. So that's kind of how you get to the point of closing the government. And the federal budget goes from October 1 to September 30th. So that's the date that passed. And usually, without much discussion, there's a continuing resolution that passes. And in this case, I think that's what everyone was expecting. But as I said, it passed the House, but when it got to the Senate, there were not 60 votes in the Senate to pass that continuing resolution. So that is why we are here. And the people that are at work, they kind of changed the term from essential to exempted, because I think people thought, well, I'm essential. Why am I not at work? But so they said accepted. So many people, many are at work, but they are not getting paid. So some of those, you hear about the TSA agents, the air traffic controllers. So these people who are accepted going to work, but are not getting paid. There are some people that are getting paid. They were able to find some money for people who are in the Defense Department, the military service. I think some people in ICE are getting paid. So some people are continuing to get paid. Social Security is, Social Security payments are being made, Medicare. So those kinds of things are continuing. But there are many, and sadly, 77% of Asian Americans are actually in the federal service, and we expect that many of them are sadly sitting at home when there's a lot of work to do and not getting paid.
And how many workers are affected here, and how about Filipino Americans? Are they present in federal agencies, and what's the concentration of Filipino American workers in government, U.S. government?
I don't have the exact number of Filipino Americans. I just have 7% are Asian American that are in the federal government. So that's a pretty large amount.
Yes.
It also includes people that work on Capitol Hill. The members of Congress are getting paid, but their staff are not getting paid right now. And there is a law that when the government reopens, when a continuing resolution or something is passed, that the federal workers and Capitol Hill staff will get paid retroactively. However, today President Trump said that he would. That's not guaranteed. So that is a real concern if that is
back pay.
We don't think it's I don't think it's legal. I think many scholars would say it's not legal, but he did say that today, which I'm sure is causing a lot of concerns for federal workers and who are trying to just they're public servants. They've dedicated their life to serve Americans in public service, and really should not be treated that way. So I hope that when the government reopens that they will get that back pay that they
And did you say that the lawmakers still get paid?
Yes, they are getting paid, but their staff are not getting paid right now. Which
why is that the case?
A law was passed that's how things work.
So it's the small ones that are getting affected by this shutdown. In particular, here in the Philippines, I do recall reaching out to the U.S. Embassy, and they told me that we are currently on shutdown and we can't operate. How is that affecting things there? What are the manifestations of this shutdown? And if it goes on a little longer, what can we expect to happen in terms of its impacts?
I mean, I think the thing that we saw this weekend was that food benefits, helping people who are very low income to afford food, to pay for their food for their family, was not sent out on November 1. So there are people all over this country, in red states and blue states, who are not sure what to do right now. They don't have money to feed their families, so they're going to food banks and other places. So it's having a real impact, and people are talking about it, and I think that we're going to see that in other programs as well. That a lot of Asian Americans are small business owners. I'm a small business owner, and over half small businesses are owned by Asian Americans, and the small business loans are stopped right now. So people who want to open businesses or grow their businesses don't have that opportunity. So those are just some of the things that are happening with the government closed right now.
Are Filipino American healthcare workers affected also by this shutdown?
Luckily, veterans benefits, TRICARE, if they work in those government settings, they should be okay. But if the payments for Medicare and Medicaid are continuing, so for right now, I think that they're okay. But it probably just depends on where money comes from for hospital or for their doctors and providers. But I think that people are feeling it in different ways, whether it's the restaurants that usually serve federal workers that come into their establishment to get food, or other services. People are feeling it, at least in Washington, D.C., where we have a large number of federal workers.
In particular, are Filipino nurses and doctors doing fine? Are they still getting paid?
as far as I know, I come from a family with many nurses and doctors, so I think they're okay for now. But it really depends on where they work and where the funding comes from to pay them. But if they're private institutions, then they're probably doing okay for now.
Okay.
But things
Well,
can
it's good to
change
understand.
yeah.
It's good to understand how this seeps through to the ground, right? But on a final question, how long do you expect this impasse to go on? And the second is, how is the current political tone of the election season affecting this impasse?
I mean, I was just on Capitol Hill talking to some senators and members, and all they can say right now is that there are some discussions and there seems to be some movement. I think you reported that at the top. But even if you get an agreement out of the Senate and something passes, it still has to go to the House. And we are not sure what will happen in the House or how President Trump will feel about whatever compromise comes out. So that's really an unknown. But fingers crossed that that people with good intent in their heart will compromise and stop this closure. And I think it's just temporary. Where I think that whatever passes will only be another few months, and we'll be facing this again. So we have a lot of work to do, and hopefully we can do that. And as far as the political tone, since kind of the U.S. elections, it's been really difficult. If you look like me, or you're not, you look like someone who might have not come from this country. I feel worried that I was born in California. I'm a U.S. citizen, but I think about, if I'm stopped, what would I say? What would I do? And I know that people think about that a lot now, whether they're carrying their passports with them. But I think that as Asian Americans, we don't feel as secure as we have in the past. We are, worried about our family or friends that may encounter a situation that is not something that we would expect in our country. So we are kind of looking over our shoulders a little bit and being careful. So that's kind of where we are right now. And we worry about maybe traveling and leaving the country, and will we have trouble coming back? And so those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about.
You echo the sentiments of Filipino communities out there, but seeing you in Washington, moving around those political circles, gives us hope somehow. So hold on to your seat. An Asian American female, and we're rooting for you out there. Maraming salamat for joining us. We have Irene Bueno of the Asian Americans Advancing Justice, giving us a temperature over at Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much.